everybody's attendance this evening. We'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To start this evening's meeting, we'll have minutes have been shared with the board members from June 17, 2021. I ask for a motion for approval of those minutes.
Motion to approve the June 17th minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
I have one item on the personnel list for this evening, and that is seeking board approval for Rick Snodgrass as our new athletic director.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. Next item will be the claim document.
You will have a much, as you probably in your emails realized, it's a much different look on the claim docket now that Mr. Ritchie is producing it. So he and Judy worked together on it for this month, but he had some different views of it, and it'd probably take us a little bit of getting used to, but tracks pretty similar.
Make motion to approve the claim document.
I'll second that motion.
And all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion approved.
And so that would take from 8 to 23. And your balance sheet would be next. The balance sheet is the same look as you're accustomed to.
Are there any questions on the balance sheet by the board? Are there any public comments this evening on the agenda?
I got two questions. One about what do you do with the portables? You repair what?
I'll explain probably more in depth once we get down there, but the one side is in pretty bad shape, so it could prove to be past its repairable life. The other one's better, but still not in, that doesn't have a lot of life in it either. So we're kind of investigating whether they can be repaired or if they need to be replaced.
Then, you put the new market sign up down from the corner where you down there, or where you go?
Yeah, so my thought process, if the board would like to digitize that sign down there to match what we have out here on 421, it would basically go in that same spot and just be a digital
Okay,
marquee.
thank you.
Any? Yes.
I don't know if I can bring this up, although the portable was one thing that I had on my mind, but my daughter was here from Minnesota. She is a school teacher up there. And we came down here, we walk around the school. I walk my dog around the school. And I just figured, is it possible to hire maybe a landscaping firm or something to come in once a month and trim the tree branches, trim around the buildings, kill the weeds, because it looks almost like we're abandoned down here. And I'm afraid to add on if we can't take care of what we have. The outside doors need to be painted. Some of the stuff on the building is peeling. Please replace this red thing with the black. That looks terrible. A red mat outside that's all ripped up. And I had pictures of the portables. And if I can't bring it up right now, it's okay, but I can give you guys these pictures and you guys can look them over and discuss it another time. I'm just asking if there's money possible to hire somebody at least once a month to come in and do that. I know whoever mows, it's a lot of grass and he is just trying to get it knocked down.
Yeah.
I realize that.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than just that, because we drove around and looked at all the other schools around the area, nobody looks as bad as ours. And that's kind of disappointing, you know, so if possible, could you maybe come up with something to take care of that?
I appreciate you bringing that to us, pointing that out, and I don't disagree. We have not kept up on the trimming around the edge of the building like we need to.
Yeah, and it wasn't only just since school was out, it's been like this all the time, and so, you know, the mower is just mowing, that's all, so. And I know, it's a lot of work, I don't want to keep up on mine, but this looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, on the school app, it said we have a meeting Thursday. Is this meeting replacing that one or
Yeah,
what?
this is the only meeting scheduled for July. Where did you see the Thursday?
On the school app under events.
Okay, I'll have to look at that.
It says the 15th at Prairie. That's what I was planning to attend, and then I saw this meeting. So
Maybe it wasn't updated.
Well,
Yeah, maybe,
third Thursday,
right.
this is Tuesday. I mean, that's,
It is in fact. Thank you, Fiona. It
I
is
mean, come on.
Tuesday, yes. I'll get that updated.
Question on, so you guys in front of you have, I presume, your monthly investment report. Last month, on June 3rd, $270,000 that was invested in a CD for the funds that were the school's education fund. That CD matured on the 3rd of June. And I'm wondering, and there's another CD that's about to mature for $500,000, you guys' rainy day fund that you have invested. It's going to mature in 2 days. When did you guys make a decision about what to do with those funds, about whether or not you're going to roll them over into continuing a new CD at the current rates, or whether you would look for CDs elsewhere? When did you guys make that decision?
We haven't made a decision on those.
By default, I guess a decision would have been made when the CD automatically matured at the end of its term last month, though.
Okay,
So did you guys know that it was maturing, or
yeah, we've been notified by the bank, but I haven't had the opportunity yet to inform the board of that.
is there an opportunity to change course at this point, or is it already rolled over? Usually the CDs just roll over for another term, but perhaps you guys had a special arrangement.
No, it is not an automatic rollover. The bank actually, we exchanged that for record keeping, and we have not completed the process.
Okay. And then I'm also wondering, in your guys' claims dockets, I was looking back through the past several months, and I'm not noticing very many claims, or actually I couldn't find any claims that were related to your guys' Wanata construction project. Have you paid any vendors or consultants related to that project yet?
If you have not seen them in claims, then I'm inclined to say we have not.
And surely they had to have been paid by now, though, right?
I don't have that here tonight, and I don't believe that's part of what we've,
Is it possible that those could have been excluded from the claims?
I don't believe so.
The previous claims that you guys had, they don't kind of look like an export from your guys' financial software. Do you know if they were in fact an export? I know you guys are changing to a new format, so it's entirely different going forward, but
Right.
were they an export, or was this a spreadsheet that you guys were creating that was different?
Our financials are done in the LAO software. There's no separate spreadsheet.
Okay. What fund categories do you guys plan to use for the portable, the marquee, and the parking lot light repairs?
I don't have a plan of which fund to use yet. Don't
Okay.
even know if that will be something that the board chooses to do.
Okay, still informational. Last week we reported that the State Board of Accounts believed that the school could have used its savings from several of its funds to buy down the cost of your guys' Wanata project, potentially saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest. Neither the school nor Ice Miller would comment on that after multiple attempts. I'm wondering why that might be, and is the school board confident that it is correct in its original assumption that it couldn't use those funds? I guess this would probably be a question directed at the school board.
Are we confident?
Yes.
I could say through conversations that we've had, and maybe there's a misinterpretation on the conversations, how they're related, similar to many conversations with yourself, that our understanding was similar to what I told you in the last board meeting. So that was what was presented to myself when I directly asked the question.
Does the school plan to communicate with the State Board of Accounts to investigate it further? I don't even know if it's possible at this point to change course. But given the potential that it could save quite a bit of money, are you guys going to take a look at it further?
I'm gonna tag on to the first part, first question and the answer given, which is, a lot of it has to do with semantically how the question's asked and who's asking it. So, there's a clarity issue there, but we've had the questions asked by so many different people, so many different ways. So sometimes I feel like we're answering the question one way, and your intended ask of it is something different. And it's impossible for us to anticipate what you're doing with that, and
If it helps to clarify
how
what
you're
I'm,
gonna spin it.
now there's no spin. What I'm trying
There's a
to,
lot of spin. Now, to answer the second part of the question, no.
know as in you're not going to look into it further?
So, to give clarity, I think you added to your question, it's probably too late. It feels to me like it's too late.
It may be, I'm not entirely positive. To clarify what my question is you guys have funds in your 700 construction fund, you have funds in your rainy day, and you have funds in your operation. State Board of Accounts said that rainy day and operations could be used, and the 700 fund, depending on the origin of those funds, could potentially be used, but they didn't go into it deeper given the complex nature of where it came from and the lack of the ability for me to be able to find out exactly where it came from the school itself. I mean, I think I figured it out, but not from the school exactly. And with that, you guys could potentially use those funds to buy down the project costs before you went to issue the bonds. So you could use part of your existing savings, and then the remaining funds could come out of a bond issuance. That's what my intended question was.
I heard a lot of explanation, but didn't catch a question.
The question is, could you guys
Would we
use
spend
those
that?
funds to buy down the cost?
It sounds as though, judging by your information, you're saying that we could.
And then my next question would
My answer to you
be,
would be that would be irresponsible for us, to be one of the few school systems that are financially in great shape and choose not to be in pretty good shape as far as securing a future, protecting our assets, and that sort of thing. I don't know that anybody who would be in the position that we are, who is essentially debt-free, would still choose to continue to be debt-free. When for the health of a school system, you need to have some debt in order to plan for maintenance, potential growth, future viability. That's a good thing. And you can continue to write and paint it as a bad thing all you want, but in the educational realm, it's a very good thing. It's a very wise thing to be at the point where we're at and still have such a low debt ceiling compared to everybody else. And I know you like to delve in and make those comparisons and look at South Central. We're in good shape, and I don't see how that's a bad thing. It should reflect poorly on anybody.
by allowing those funds to sit in the account for as long as it has, Tri-Township has allowed those funds to lose value. The buying power of those funds has declined in the last 10 years since the school corporation was formed because there wasn't a plan for them. And going forward, if there's not a plan for those funds, it'll continue to decline. Those are tax dollars that were taken out of the taxpayers' pockets, or being held in a school bank account, and don't have a clear plan for them. Does the school corporation, the school board particularly, have a plan for those funds going forward?
We are at the beginning stages of having an excellent 5-year strategic plan in place. Now that we have secured a future for this small school district.
Have those discussions?
Once the night's done, and we take care of the major albatross that's been hanging around its neck for some time. You want to talk about declining purchasing power, the people that have been dragging their feet for so long and getting in the way of what is obviously the best step forward if Tri-Township's going to continue to exist. I would agree with you 100%. We've had a lot of declining purchasing power over the years, which is why we find ourselves now working in an environment that is very difficult to have purchasing leverage.
Why do you suppose your bosses drug their feet then?
Again,
You said that some people were dragging their feet. Those people would presumably be your 5 bosses
those
here.
people would be your people.
I don't have people. And I don't make any of the decisions for the school
What other
corporation.
questions do you have?
I guess, are you guys gonna revisit it?
I think we have. You presented it several times, and the question is asked after this. We've been directed by professionals, lawyers, attorneys, people who do this for a living, and the questions have been asked. And we're here today, and I think we're answering that. And one thing to add on to what Mr. Shepherd said is, it's statement for you, you got me. But we've been getting 3.5% to 5%, even as much as 6% interest in those same funds, and we wouldn't be here today if we weren't investing wisely and doing those things in the last 20 years between the townships. So I understand what you're saying. I understand the value of dollars and money. There's also, we don't want to be in the position 2 years from now, we're going back to the taxpayer to say we need money now because we can't afford the basic needs for our teachers and our students, because now we're asking for a tax abatement or some type that we need money to operate our school system. Every school system around us has a project associated with the tax base. We have it, and that's unfortunately been a bad thing for us, because now when it does happen, we're obscure and we're among the very few school corporations that don't have a tax rate associated with the project, and we can't do the things like we need to do, such as take care of our property, the things that are being brought up. We need those dollars, and we need to do it. It's still taking.
I know, it cuts off after so long.
We need the dollars to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the school corporation and the students.
Mr. Shepherd had
And I would
indicated,
offer too, I mean, I would take care of the issues that are clearly in your own backyard, and take care of the town water in LaCrosse. Because before coming up here tonight, I had put on the hat of plumber to get a urinal to stop running, because 3 times today, the water was off in LaCrosse.
Mr. Shepherd, that's been notified for months as part of a $5 million project to fix those issues. And part of fixing the issues or replacing lines is taking the water offline.
All winter long, we had a leaking fire hydrant.
We acknowledge that as well too. It's part of being replaced. It's being replaced as part of this project so that we didn't have to turn off the water for the school.
I would say if you got on the right focus and took care of it, look in the mirror yourself, it might be beneficial. I mean, you're the only town in America that somehow can't get a Dollar General. If you want me to help with that, I seem to be a guy that can get things done. Knox has 2 Dollar Generals. Every dot on the map up 421 has Dollar Generals. You can't seem to get it done.
If you have ideas, I'm happy to listen to
I
them.
might start coming and helping you out. LaCrosse could use one. Maybe we'll get 2. I'll have Darren grocery shopping Dollar General out in English Lake.
I look forward to seeing you at our next town council meeting.
Sounds good.
I think that's the rest of my questions for tonight.
Thank you.
Ready for the next line item?
I think so.
PSI phase 1 report.
Right. Mr. Shepherd, any fine? We get right in?
You got it. Jump right in.
Okay.
Thank you.
And do you mind kind of driving?
I
this
can
if need be? All right, well, my name is Tony Kuykendall with Performance Services. I am glad to be here tonight to kind of walk you through really a lot of the efforts we've been putting in over the last couple of months to pull together. It's called a phase 1 report, but basically it's a summary of findings related to the building project here at Wanata. First things first, just so you know who's with me here tonight. You've probably seen some of the faces, but Jerry Rolson right here is our lead architect, who's really he'll be speaking here in just a moment about some of the plans, the drawings, the breakouts that we did. Matt Peterson is our lead engineer. He's also been involved in this project from the onset. And then really as we started moving into, we got a lot of the cost summary information that we're going to be sharing tonight as well. So Joe Clausen's here tonight. He's really with our operations team. He's helped us acquire, really working with the contractors and getting bids for the proposed project. So we're here tonight to walk you through a summary of this phase 1 report. And I think what's probably best, like I said, we've really worked over the last couple months and really worked with the administration at the high school, at the elementary school, with different board members as far as getting feedback on what we needed to do when we looked at this addition. We all have known from day one that this was going to be, it's a tight budget for the size and scope of these classrooms that we're adding on. So we have, Jerry's gonna walk you through it shortly, but we have several different alternates that we kind of priced to make sure that we had the base scope of work of what needs to be done to bring those classrooms over here and house the high school. But there's also some other pricing breakouts we did to make sure we could build to the overall school budget. Because, I mean, there's only so much money, we can only use so much with those dollars. So that's really what we want to start with. And I'd like to actually have Jerry maybe walk you all through what we've done in that regard, and then we'll go through the pricing summary. Great. Jerry?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So what we had, Tony's absolutely right. We structured the project with several pricing groups so that we could build up the total, with the essential scope being the additional classrooms that are needed to move the high school students into the Wanatah School. And so on the diagram that you have, that we have on the screen there, the colored portion of the plan is the proposed building addition. So, as we started this process, there were actually multiple options kind of pursued in terms of like what would be the best location for a building addition. Really exploring every avenue for that. And this was deemed to be the best kind of programmatic location for a building location and the best strategic location as well around building through working with the school's working group. And the pricing groups that were identified were base scope being the classrooms, and then we broke out pricing then from that into the group of toilets that are part of that addition, a group of administrative offices that would move into an open classroom space adjacent to the current administration area, and then some renovations to 2 other existing classrooms. Those 2 existing classrooms, which would be an existing science, an existing home ec classroom that is being used for science to have some renovations in it that would better suit it for science, and then some renovations to an existing art lab. And so those were the pricing breakouts. You can see those dashed lines that represent those zones within the existing building, which is the white portion of that plan. So the building addition then, and the major scope of the project, really the target scope of the project, you have the building addition plus renovations to the existing media center library space that allows access to that building addition. So cutting a corridor essentially through that. And if, Kelly, if you want to pull to the next page, it'll show you an enlargement of the building addition. This kind of gives you a little better view then of the building addition, the size of the classrooms. The classrooms are modeled very similar to the existing building. The one component there you see office, because we're cutting a pathway through the media center, a corridor essentially, we needed to replace the office that was going to be separated from it, and then the existing media office is then dedicated for a speech space, speech and hearing space. So the building addition, in terms of its materials, it's a steel frame, construction is brick veneer and a metal panel that will emulate what's on the building currently, so basically matching the kind of materials that are there. There's some building elevations later on that I'll show you. And it includes lockers then in the corridor to support the numbers of students that will be added. So the target use of these classrooms, as I recall, Kelly, these are targeted the middle school classrooms primarily on this end because of the way the
That would be accurate primarily, but with the potential of both high school and middle school students with, depending on the subjects that we place in there.
Right. Okay, and then, moving on to the next plan, then we have a site plan that gives you a little bit of orientation on the location then from above, in terms of where that is. It's relatively small expansion onto the site. It does not require a lot of and does not have a lot of site impact. Really, the most notable thing is we're kind of routing a sidewalk around the building addition and connecting to the exit doors that are kind of at the end of that wing. The rest of it is really just some minor regrading. In terms of the stormwater off of the roof, we're tying into an existing storm line lateral that runs into the existing building, so nothing substantial there. And for the sanitary connection for the toilet rooms, it just so happens that there is a sanitary line clean out that runs right out at about the center point of the where the classroom addition is planned, and so our connection would be to that existing sanitary lateral. On the outside of the building then, again, as I mentioned, we're emulating the existing materials, so both a combination of metal panel and this is a flat, kind of a flush flat metal panel with a reveal, and brick veneer, and then aluminum operable vent windows that are similar to the existing aluminum operable vent windows as well. The building height will be just a little bit taller than the existing building. This building's relatively short, so we need a little bit more elevation just to be able to run our infrastructure properly through it. And so as you look at the side, the kind of north elevation there, as you recall, there was an addition on the end of the building on that south end of a couple of classrooms. We'll actually be matching that height, but that height's just a little bit higher than the original portion of the building. And then in terms of some construction logistics, then we have to be able to maintain school operations. And so there's a few things that we've been working with the school district on in terms of coordinating. And number one would be like, how do we get material access to the building? And so most of our delivery, or all of our delivery, will come off of 421, and we'll kind of route through and around on school. And we'll avoid the front of the building and the parking lot. We'll actually kind of wrap around and come in around the project parking lot, and then enter adjacent to where the building addition is. So there'll be a stone kind of access way created there, and that would be our point of delivery and access to the building addition and to the laydown area, which we'll have building materials kind of on the hardcore play area adjacent to the proposed building addition. And that entire then construction zone will be fenced to keep it separated from any students or community members. Contractor parking, I didn't mention that, but contractor parking, we've talked with Kelly about the best spot for that, which we think would be on the far south end on the east side of the building. Okay. Then, as Tony said, we've completed, really, at this point, we're ready to begin and move into construction upon board approval. And Tony's going to walk you through kind of the cost breakdown of the project.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward here. As Jerry was talking about, we did break these prices out, because we obviously know we got to kind of keep that budget in mind. So that first category you have up there, you can't read that in the back, it just says 5 classroom addition, and that's where the restrooms are kind of shelled out, they're not fully finished. But that's so what we did, we took basically all of our drawings, all of our designs, we had a contractor pre-bid, received firm pricing, and pulled that information, obviously we summarized it here. So we're actually a little bit under the budget of what was identified in the RFP that was written for the project for this. So we're at $2,472,435, and that's kind of one of the core pieces, as well as the restrooms right beneath there. And I don't know if that right-hand column will show Kelly, but basically the first column that you have there, it has kind of all the scope, so it has it broken out for those alternates. And then our proposed scope are the 5 classroom addition, as well as making sure that the restrooms are fully finished out in the new addition. And that's the $98,479. Just walking you kind of through the other alternates, and this is something I would say as a school board and as you guys meet with your financial experts on this, we don't exactly know the dollars at the end of the day or what you guys may be able to include or not include, but we price them out for you. So we do have the renovation there to basically take over one of those classrooms and repurpose that into office space for the administration for both, basically for the high school. That's $149,720. And then some of the classroom renovations, basically renovating that classroom space for a science room, is $64,350. There's a small alternate, it's called 3A, if you see on the side. That's just replacing the flooring, getting rid of some of the carpet, and going with like a VCT type flooring in that space. So the 3173. And the last pricing alternate that we designed and had priced out as well was really kind of renovating and I kind of upgraded kind of that existing art room as well. So a lot of it includes kind of removing some of the old casework, installing new casework, the sinks, and then there is an alternate as far as well for new flooring in that space as well.
If I'm understanding this correctly, then some of these things, even as a school corporation, these things probably would be things we should be looking at anyway, even if we weren't doing a project under the alternate basis, like things that you'd recommend, or am I interpreting that correctly? Like, when you look at
Yes, I think so. They are things that would enhance the program function of the building, so yes, they would.
So we've kind of summarized all the pricing information here. Based upon the board's direction tonight, we've not, and I think I shared this with some of you, but we haven't notified at this point contractors, right? They've submitted the bids to us. We selected the apparent low from those contractors. You guys, the board also has this document in front of you. So this is basically a list of all the contractors that were invited, all the contractors that bid and who declined to bid. So you have that list in front of you, and if we move forward, we'll be able to kind of select those contractors and notify them. We are aware that the school has a responsible bidders policy with this. We put everyone's minds at ease as well. The contractors that are the apparent lows and have been selected on this are union-based shops. So just so you're aware, but we don't want to notify the contractors until the board says yes, we'd like to move forward, and then we'll start that process. I'm going to let Jerry wrap up just with the schedule, and then we'll pause for any questions. I don't want to rush past this, but I'd rather have him finish with the schedule piece, and then we'll answer your questions.
Right, and so the schedule, I've included the Milestone Schedule in your packet on the screen. It basically kind of walks us through kind of the starting point to where we are now and then towards the end, right? Kind of begin with the end in mind. And so we really started you can see there, April 13th was our first kind of formal meeting that kind of kick-started after we were able to move forward with design, and that you can see there, that owners working group meeting discussed preferred additional location. That's what I mentioned when I started. We were looking at multiple different potential additional locations, and we wanted to pinpoint the one that would work best for the school district. And so once we landed on that, then we could start honing in on the actual details of what the building addition. So you can see there were a series of meetings, both our kind of own internal design team meetings, plus meetings where we reviewed with Tri-Township school corporations, kind of give them updates and discuss what preferences were and identify everything from the big picture programmatic needs to the minute details of like what's the material on each of the floor going to be, or are we using projection or flat panel monitors in classrooms, those types of things, just to make sure everything's outfitted properly. And so then we kind of fast forward and scroll down to here. We're now at the point of where we are ready to make a decision, moving on to phase 2. You can see tonight's board meeting, July 13th. Upon notification tonight, we would then move into phase 2 services. What is phase 2 services? Well, phase 2 services is essentially construction, but there are some kind of nuts and bolts that we need to do before we can begin construction, and we do need to make submittals to all the government jurisdictions that will award permitting. One of those is Indiana Department of Homeland Security for their state plan review and design release. We receive that first before we move on to local permitting, which will be through the town of Wanata. And so those are the 2 permitting steps that are needed here before we can begin construction. We have a target beginning construction in September, anticipating some dates for approvals. So usually by state law, actually the state of Indiana is required to grant approvals within a 3-week period, unless there are questions or concerns with a submittal. And once they begin that question answering process, it kind of extends that period. But we anticipate about a 3 to 4 week process for approval from the state.
And then I would anticipate about the same period of time approval from the town of Wanata. And that ultimately leads to beginning construction around the middle of September, give or take a few days. And so then our goal then would be to have the building pour and shell complete in November, getting the building weather tight prior to bad winter weather in December. And then ultimately, the ultimate goal is to have the project completed so that students are using the building at the beginning of the fall school year in 2022. So we'll complete sometime over the summer, allow a period of time then for the school's administration and staff to move in and make sure everything is just right, and then be ready for students on that first day of school. That's kind of the goal of the project in terms of schedule. And that concludes our kind of formal presentation piece. We'll pause at this point and take questions from the board.
I'd like to ask you a question. How much headroom are you gonna have between the finished sheet and the bottom of your trusses? When they done this, the guys were fighting to get through there for the addition to run this other stuff.
You know what the funding space is right off the top of your head.
Do not off the top of my head. That is one reason why the structure is higher. When you look at that side here,
understand that part.
it's higher. And also, we're using steel beam instead of trusses because of the availability of trusses. So our beams are a little shallower than the truss would typically be. So we'll have more than we have in this building.
So you're gonna use I-beams or what kind of beams?
We are not using steel joists. We are using actually wide flange beams and purlins on it because anybody who's dealing with construction might know some of the issues with availability on certain
Weight bearing and all that.
construction elements. Yeah, so we avoided steel joists for that very issue.
And then your panels, they're gonna be insulated? It goes on the outside, like old corning is? Okay.
So what was the question?
The metal panels.
It's actually, the metal panels are not insulated, it's actually a rain screen system. We'll have a rigid insulation behind them then, and an air moisture barrier, kind of as a waterproof membrane, kind of underneath that insulation. So, yeah.
How many lockers do you have in there and how many kids will those lockers store? You come before?
Wasn't 72 lockers?
We get influx, I was just wondering if it's gonna be enough, you gotta add more lockers later.
72.
72 sounds right.
And
There's additional lockers here already that aren't in use.
Okay, thank you.
So,
And there's actually space in those corridors that are not lined with lockers currently. So with the
More lockers
hopefully
can be
additional
added.
enrollment, you can add lockers, but there's space for that as well.
But the headroom is what I'm concerned about, because I know Washington, when they put this addition on, they had a heck of a time getting their stuff in there.
Yes, and we honestly, we've been above these ceilings all through here trying to route the pipe to get it to the addition.
Get your hands through there, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little circuitous, to say the least, in terms of finding the pathway there.
Okay, answer my question, I just like to have the answer to the headroom, if you don't mind.
No problem whatsoever.
Will this disrupt the education environment while you guys are constructing it during the school year?
We don't anticipate, we're kind of outside of the kind of the school environment for the most part. We will plan to do our renovation work off periods. So for instance, we won't cut the pathway to the media center until the summer because it's relatively small scope and it can be done rapidly. And so for the most part, we will not be in the way of the school. In fact, we treat all of our construction projects like it's a school site first and it's a construction site second. So we always manipulate and maneuver our work activities around the school. And we work closely on a daily basis with the school just to make sure they know what we're planning on doing and we know what they're planning on doing. And if we have to do something that is noisy and disruptive to the school environment, we'll do those on an after-hours basis or on weekends at times when there are not students in the building. So we're very sensitive to that. The vast majority of our work is school construction, and so we're really accustomed to working closely with schools to be able to know like what should we be doing, what's kind of hands off. We kind of already know going into it what we need to do. But the key is really just communication with the school's personnel on a regular basis, so they know what's coming, and we know what's coming in terms of what's going on in school, in terms of education or activities.
And will you guys have a sprinkler system in the new addition?
It will not have a sprinkler system, no. No, because of that, the building, the building code requires there'll be some fire-rated walls there that kind of separate corridors off from classrooms and things like that, so we're compliant with the building codes.
Thank you.
But we are compliant with fire codes.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah, I mean,
I
as a
just wanted to
registered
make that
architect,
clear,
yeah,
because-
yeah.
No crawl space.
Is that high school gonna have a separate entrance to come into the high school part, or everybody's still gonna come in at the entrance down there? Big kids, little kids, everybody come in at the same spot, and then,
That's probably a better question for the school district to answer.
I would kind of say at this point, it remains to be seen how we're gonna, because
because it's still gonna be elementary at this end and junior high down there.
yeah, I can safely say we're gonna remain with our elementary at that end. But we're anticipating how we do pick up and drop off differently, so that's gonna impact who uses what doors. We've had a lot of administrative conversation regarding that. So we're definitely thinking about that. Who do we want coming in where? Is it possible to cordon off age groups as far as for entrance and exit? So we're thinking about that. Good question.
And one more thing. Is there any overhang over the entrance doors? I mean, that's the big problem with the out front now. You know, if the kids have to go out and wait to get on the bus, they're in the rain, they're in the snow, because there's no overhang out there, no protection. And
So we have just a little bit of protection at the doorways because they're recessed, but we don't have like an extensive canopy system or anything like that included in the project.
because this used to have it until they added all of the office space up there and lost all that.
That, I would think that'd be one of those things we could put on our 5-year strategic plan for consideration, certainly.
Just to your point, the thought was that when we built the last one, was they could be inside, but they could still see, because they had the new vestibule be here. We also need to look at what you're saying.
Yeah.
Alan, don't they stand in the foyer though?
Yeah,
Go
they
out
do.
to the bus.
Right.
In the rain, right?
Right. Yeah, typically, and again, the point becomes much more important if and when.
Right.
I like when better, when we grow.
Right.
And when they're getting off the buses,
Right, I
you know,
understand what you're
then
saying,
they're
yeah,
outside there.
absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Does the board have any questions? I believe, I don't know.
We're gonna do it now.
Yeah, I can't. Anything else on that?
Could I see a copy of your contract?
I'll make a motion to agree with PSI Phase 2 revision.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Well, there, we are, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for
Permission
all your
for
efforts.
phase 2.
Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate it. I look forward to copy of your contract. Mr. Shepherd, can I see a copy of the contractor that they're going to be working on with the building?
That may become a public document.
back and let us know.
Right, we don't have, that would have to wait until,
They just separate, notify.
yeah, and then that would be something we would provide. Jim, be specific, you're wanting to know
Who's gonna be doing the work where?
submitted bids?
Yeah, I'd like to see who submitted all the bids.
Okay, that would be something that we'll get out, but it wouldn't be tonight, because these guys still have communication.
I'll wait.
Perfect, yep,
I'll give you a thumbs up.
all right,
I'll work
great,
on
thank
that
you.
too. That'll be. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Moving on to the Tiger Den roof.
Yeah, so I had, last meeting, I told you a little bit about the kind of the off-the-cuff feedback from Todd Linkleiter with Trimco on our Tiger Den roof. I have one copy, I met with him yesterday. I have a hard copy of the actual report from the infrared scan of the roof and a core sample, so you can look through there. But again, great news on the Tiger Den, that barrel roof, they consider it 100% dry as far as the insulation. There was one wet spot on the roof that they did some mitigation work with. And actually yesterday, Brian and I both climbed up there with Todd when he came to meet with me and show me this. And he pointed out some areas of, maybe some more imminent concern that we just want to be aware of. But the overall report is very good news for us. So where I left that with him was, and I'll see, board, I guess I'm asking if you agree with this. Where I left it with him was, timing-wise, I feel like knowing our roof here and our roof there are in good shape, that it makes sense to get this project completed, and then we can revisit that notion of a long-term maintenance agreement with Trimco if that's something we think is in our best interest. We certainly have the time to do that. And then it just makes sense to me that we've got the new roof on this new addition completed. And if we choose to turn that over to Trimco, it would all be done at the same time. If that sounds similar to your thoughts on the subject. So that's for information update on the roof. Number 10.
You said there was one spot. I mean, basically the whole thing was dry, but you said there was one spot.
One spot of concern where he felt like there was a leak in the membrane, but that's something that they temporarily fixed for us and will patch a little bit. Yeah, you found the spot on there? And that's actually on what they have numbered as roof 4, and that's right above the kitchen area.
Okay.
So the gym roof itself is really, it makes sense, obviously, with the barrel shape. It's in great condition.
Okay.
Number 10, we've got 6 light poles, 6 lights on the back parking lot behind the kitchen area, kitchen and cafeteria areas on the east side of the Tiger Den that I would like to get upgraded to LED light heads and get the timing system fixed so that they're on and off when they should be, instead of at times randomly. And so I'm getting quotes together for that work, and we'll provide those to you soon. Number 11, we talked a little bit earlier about the digital marquee. I would like to see that sign there. I know that the public had some concerns about our sign updating, and we think that would be a great thing to have and give us the ability to be more responsive and updating with a digital sign similar, if not identical, to the one here in Wanata. So I will have in the process of getting quotes for that. We, at various times, we've talked about our portable buildings, and the latest update I want to give you is we're seem to be quickly trending away from repairability. Scott had recently informed me that he was going to attempt to get the east side building, that roof that we all looked at together that's sagging, and he wanted to try to push that up and secure it, and using a floor jack. And instead, the floor jack was going through the floor. So right now, he just kind of walked away from that, left that as is. And I think once I gather a couple sets of numbers, it's been difficult to get a repair quote, but we might find ourselves quickly at replacement instead. And I'll have a couple quotes coming into that end to share with you soon. So that's for your information. That takes us to number 13 in your packet, which I mentioned earlier with Mr. Ritchie on staff now helping me with our budget season that's coming up. The two of us have put together our 2022 budget calendar for this fall, and you have that in your packet. We will be asking a couple additional meetings for you, one in August, an additional in August, and an additional in September. So if you are okay, having looked at those dates for that calendar as presented, that I would like approval from the board for that calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget calendar for 2022.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Nothing. We have, going on to 15 to the extracurricular.
So a motion by the board for approval of
Yes,
SC
motion
5.
to approve the SF5 reports.
I'll second it.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion approved.
Superintendent report that's left. I would just like to actually be introduced to you. I'm Mr. Shepherd, and it's nice to have you here. What's your name?
Jan Bailey,
Jan Bailey.
yeah.
Thanks for coming tonight, Jan. And I appreciate all of the input and the feedback.
I have to ask, when you have I know where the LaCrosse meetings are, but when you have Prairie Township, where is that?
So that, yes, that is the Prairie Township building, which is out on 1800 and Highway 39.
Okay,
Now, that is really, once in the middle of the summer, the meeting is out there. So it may be back out there next June.
okay.
So otherwise, typically, we toggle back and forth across and
Yeah, and I saw something about Prairie Township Community Building or something like that. I thought there was only fields in Prairie Township, so I
Yes.
didn't find out where it was.
So, yeah, welcome. Thanks for coming, and I want you to know that the board and I both value public input, involvement, and contrary sometimes to some of the other public that has been in attendance for the last year, we love to have, that helps the process go much better.
I usually forget until about 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
For school board tonight, I should have gone.
I'm glad you were here. So nice to make your acquaintance. That's all I have tonight.
Motion adjourned.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Board meeting August 12th at LaCrosse at 6 o'clock.